Go ahead and get started. At this time, I'm going to mute everyone's line so there's no interference. And you do have the ability to unmute at any time that you want to make any comments or have any questions. So let me go ahead and mute everyone now. All right, so Aaron, you can get started.
All right, can everybody hear me?
Yes.
All right, yes. Good. All right, so welcome everybody. We appreciate the family joining. This is another installment of Passing On Tribal Knowledge. I want to give a shout out to the committee members, Vince, who is taking the lead today. We appreciate you. Yolanda, Shed, Carrie, and Monique are also members of our committee. So just a brief overview before we get going. So this committee, we got together, I want to say it was back in July, August, somewhere in that time frame. And we talked about all of the different people that we have in our family, different experts on different subject matters. And we started talking about how can we get all of this knowledge passed on to generations, including ourselves. Number one, our primary goal was to share information, but to also create generational wealth. As you know, that is very important, not to just our family, but those abroad. So what we wanted to do is kind of have a series of information sharing with the family. We started off very small, and then we started opening it up to a broader audience. So now what we're trying to do for 2021 is to continue this on, and hopefully each, if not every month, each quarter, we can start sharing more information, whether it be for financial reasons, personal reasons, whatever the topic may be. We're looking for experts that can talk to that. So today what we're doing, we're just going to recap the sessions that we've had thus far. So for those who have joined us in the past, we appreciate you and welcome back. And for those that this is new, you know, we hope that you'll gain something out of it, and we will continue to move forward. And again, creating generational wealth was our initial goal, but that has since broadened. We want to share more than just wealth. We want to share any type of information that can benefit anyone from our family, throughout the communities, throughout our states, and throughout the world. So without further delay, if everybody would bow their head, we're going to open up in prayer so we can get this thing going. Most gracious Heavenly Father,
Aaron, you went on mute.
Can you hear me now?
Yep, got it.
All right. All right. All right, we're going to go ahead and open up in prayer if you didn't hear that. Gracious Heavenly Father, we thank you. Thank you for planting the seed. We thank you for planting the seed over 100 years ago for our family, the Williams Locke family. Lord, we thank you that we are continuing to pass on this knowledge. We're continuing tradition. And Lord, we just thank you that we are a family of faith. And we ask that you'll continue to help us grow as individuals, grow as families, so that we can make the world a better place. And Lord, as we put on this show today, as far as information, we ask that someone will be able to receive something that will help them and help their families. And Lord, we give you all the glory, all the honor, and all the praise. In your name, Jesus, amen.
Amen. All right, so again, thank you, everyone. My name is Vince Williams, and I reside in Atlanta, Georgia. I've been here for about 20 years now. So as Aaron said, you know, we've had these sessions. The first session that we had was on life insurance. And we're going to go just kind of brief recap through the various sessions. We had 5 different sessions, and we're going to do a small, quick recap of these sessions. And we're going to, ask questions at the end of each topic. If you have any questions or comments that you want to make or anything you want to add to the conversation. It's not about us just giving the information. It's about us collectively as a family sharing the information so that we can all grow. Uh, there's many different things going on in our country at this particular time. But instead of marching, just getting out to vote, some things we can do internally and help us build together collectively as a family. And that's what we're here to do. So the first session that we had was demystifying and decoding life insurance. We had two life insurance agents on the call giving us the information. One was a broker, his name was Steve Compton, and one was a kind of financial advisor or term insurance advisor, and his name was JC LaFleur. And in this session, it's very vital that I'm going to just give you the highlights and the high points of the session, that they talked about. We do have the videos on the YouTube, and I'm going to tell you at the end where you can get those videos from and how you can access those. So the first thing they talked about with life insurance and understanding life insurance is that there's only two different types of life insurance. There's term insurance. So we have term insurance and we have permanent insurance. Okay. And under those two different types, there's many different products. So there's all different products like universal, variable, whole life. There's all kinds of names of different products, but there's only two different types, either permanent or term insurance. Okay. Now, permanent insurance offers you coverage, a guaranteed benefit to your death. The number that they have is actual 100 and some now 120 years. If you live longer than that, then they would give you your money while you're living. But it's guaranteed. Permanent insurance is guaranteed, and that's over entire life. Term insurance is for a certain duration or a designated time period, whether it's 5, 10, or 20 years. You can have 30 years, but once that term is over, they don't owe you anything. You don't owe them anything. You just cut ties, and go on about your business. So some of the things that we wanted to make sure, and we talked about in this session, is that life insurance is a very selfless act. You don't immediately get the benefit. You can, according to the insurance that you get. Permanent insurance a lot of times has more benefits for you as the policy holder. It has a little more flexibility, but we don't want you to think of it as an investment. It's not really an investment. It's for the generations after you. Okay. And in terms of how much you need, that all depends on you and your lifestyle and what's going on with your family, your situation. Is it just for final expenses? When you die, we have to prepare for that because we're all going to retire from these labors on earth at some particular time. We just don't know when, but we have to be prepared for that time when it comes. So is it just about paying, those $10,000 to $15,000 for burial protection or burial insurance? Or is it some of the outstanding debt and credit cards and loans and mortgages that you have? You don't want to pass those on and leave that as a legacy behind. Some of the other things that we kind of talked about was the legacy part and the inheritance, yes, but it's better to get it while you are young. The rates are going to be a lot better while you are fit and in better shape because they do go off of your medical history. See, your money pays for the insurance, but your health qualifies you. So you'll get a better rate when you're at a better age, and better health. Like I said, they look at your medical history. They look at prescription history. They look at your BMI. They take blood tests. That qualifies you for a lot of the insurance, whole life insurance, even some of the term. There are some that you do not need to have a medical exam. But it is good to shop around and get that. And your beneficiaries, be mindful of the beneficiaries and their age, because you can't have, they're not going to give the money to minors. Also, make sure you have a contingent beneficiary as well, because if your beneficiary is, ex-spouse or someone that passed on, you're going to have some issues, with probate court and everything, and even getting the money. There's a lot of funeral homes that have that have programs and other third-party vendors that will finance those death expenses, those funeral expenses, before the life insurance gives you the money. But you have to have that the contingent beneficiary, just in case. So all of these things are some things that you want to keep in mind. I don't want to spend too much time on this one topic. We had the experts. I'm not the expert, and by no means at this particular topic, but we do have the experts on the videos. So we want you to watch the videos, of these sessions. Before we move on to the estate planning, I want to open it up real quick. Any comments or questions about life insurance? We do have some people on the call who, sell life insurance. We have people who have their own life insurance. Is there any contribution that anyone would like to give in terms of life insurance, for the benefit of the family?
This is Adrienne. Hello, everyone. I am a relatively new agent for State Farm. And one of the things that we have come across within our own community is that many, many people do not have some type of a plan for their last days or for if they're no longer here. So it's extremely important to plan ahead, even if you get the smallest policy, such as final expenses, because you do not want to have your family going online asking for support and help to close out the life of your loved one. And also, you want to make sure that everything is in place to actually appropriately close out the life of your loved ones. So I would encourage each person online, each family member, to consider looking at some of these opportunities around the life insurance plan. Okay, that's it. Thank you.
Thank you for that. That's really good advice. We see it all the time. It's far too often we have GoFundMe's and fish fries, and we shouldn't be doing that. We should be taking care of our responsibilities here on earth and taking care of our families, because we do know that that day is coming, and we have adequate information at our disposal to prevent these kinds of things from happening. Is there anyone? Yes, the bells.
Yes. Hello, everyone. I also I agree with the life insurance, but I also, my husband and I, we have pre-needs and also, the life insurance, but the pre-needs takes care of the entire funeral planning when that time comes. And then your life insurance can actually be left for your legacy, for those that are behind, for your children, or maybe for a donation into a particular area. But I just wanted to mention that because I do know that, I've ran into a lot of Black families who they don't want to think about pre-need, they don't want to think about planning, but it is is such a burden off of the family because everything's already taken care of. And then in that way, whichever life insurance that you have, that can be used to whomever is left behind to take care of whatever bills or whatever you accumulated over your years. So I just wanted to throw that in. Pre-needs are something that I think is a wise choice, and maybe some of the younger ones can look into that as well. That's all.
Yes, thank you for that contribution. And that does lead us into our next topic. But before I go in there, does anyone else have any questions or comments or contributions they want to make in terms of life insurance?
Yes, Vince.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just wanted to reiterate what you said about there is no age limit for life insurance. I don't care how old your kid is, get life insurance for everyone. Because I was sitting in a group and some people had lost their kids, which had kids. The grandparents were taking care of the kids because they had lost their kids. And they had to go back to work because they were about to retire, but now they lost their kid. And their grandkids are now in their household, but they had no life insurance when they lost a kid. So it's nothing to help them with the burial or anything like that. So I just want to reiterate, there's no age limit on life insurance. If you have a kid, get life insurance. So if you're 80, it doesn't matter, get life insurance. That's all I have to say.
Thank you for that contribution, Markeith. In terms of that, many of the insurance plans, they do have what's called, a rider, and you can put your children down as a rider, or get them their own life insurance plan. Many companies do that as well. I know Walmart got it, kind of got in trouble for that. They had a insurance policy on all of their employees. There are other people who are known, some of our other counterparts of this country were known to go into some of the inner cities and put life insurance policies on some of the people there. In the record industry, they put, they have policies on the entertainers because of the lifestyle that they live and some things they may talk about. Their life expectancy may not be that long. So it's a school of thought that, if we have more life insurance on our community, crime may go down because money is backing it, and you have all of these different people that's going to have to pay out upon death within our community. Sometimes it happens a little more. One thing I do want to say and make note of is many of us have life insurance within our jobs. Our life insurance in our jobs is not our insurance. It is the job's insurance. When we retire, it may carry through, but it may not. When you get of an older age, the life insurance is more expensive. If you leave the company, the life insurance does not go with you as well. So be mindful of that. It's good to have your own life insurance, your own policy. So we do have people in our family who are life insurance agents. You can reach out to them or, anyone close by, but definitely want you to make sure everyone in this family has some kind of life insurance so we can keep to our theme of, passing it on. We don't want to pass on debt and have to do GoFundMes. We want to pass on a legacy, some wealth, and, just build as a community. Anyone have any further comments or contribution before we move forward? Okay, seeing none, we're going to move on to estate planning. So with estate planning, we had a session, we have another video on estate planning, and we had an attorney come on it and give us all of the information about estate planning. So what we learned is about 70% of the African-American families do not have a will. We do not talk about this. We do not like to plan for these kinds of things, but we know it's going to happen. We want to avoid the probate process, the probate courts. But one thing that we have to be mindful in our wills is we do have to, be careful of naming our beneficiaries. We need to make sure it's updated as well. But we do want to protect that personal property. Now, also in estate planning, we also talked about durable power of attorney, medical power of attorney, and healthcare directives. We have to think about these, our wishes. But one of the most important things, to me that we talked about was trust. We delved a little bit into trust. There's two kinds of trust: a revocable trust and the irrevocable trust. And what that does is that is basically your wishes beyond the grave. It's your commands, your demands on your wealth and how it is dispersed, your money, how it is dispersed, and how it is protected from the grave. Many of us don't have to worry about the death tax, but there is a death tax if you have more than, I think it's 5 million. More than 5 million, I believe it is. You have to pay a death tax of about 40%. The government will take that. So many of our counterparts put their property or investments, all of that, into a trust to protect their inheritance. So I'm going to pass it on to Aaron and see if he had any contribution, anything he wanted to, contribute in terms of this, add to the conversation before I open it up to everyone else.
All right, thanks, Vince. All right, so as Vince said, 70% of African-American families have no will. And I know probably all of us, if not many, have at least seen families or been a part of those rifts that happen when someone passes away because people want to claim properties, assets, and things of that nature. So that's why we talked about the estate planning and why it's so important to have some type of legal documentation on what you plan to do with your assets or what you want done with your assets should you have an untimely death. So what is estate planning? It's the process of designating who will receive your assets and handle your responsibilities after your death or incapacitation. There's just 4 quick things I just want to share with you, 4 basic steps for estate planning. The number one thing is you want to, if nothing else, consult with an attorney to get this plan written. But the 4 things you want to do is inventory your things. A lot of us walk around and not really realize that we have a lot of assets, whether it be home, land, vehicles, any collectibles, personal possessions, things like that will be considered, your inventory, your assets that you want to pass along or have designated to somebody. Your checking and saving accounts, stocks, bonds, life insurance policies that we just talked about, retirement plans and things of that nature. The second thing you want to do is account for your family's needs. So from an estate planning standpoint, if you have children, grandchildren, nieces, nephews, aunts, uncles, things you want to leave to specific people, account for their needs, especially if, like Vince said, if you have an abundance of asset, whether it be cash, whether it be property, be able to divide that up, be able to think about who needs what in the event that you should pass, especially if you're taking care of them now. Establish your directives, and we talked about that as far as whether you need a healthcare directive, a living will, medical power of attorney. You want to establish those early. A lot of us don't like to talk about this subject. I use myself personally, myself and my wife. Our financial advisor probably over 15 years ago was like, you guys need to set up a will. And we kept saying, well, we'll do it. But the more we talked about it, the more uncomfortable it got. I don't know about anybody else, but I don't like to talk about me passing away, but it is evident, it will eventually happen. And it took us a while to get to the point where we wanted to actually have a living will or have a will written out to establish what we want to do with what we've accumulated. And the last thing is just review your beneficiaries. Make sure that, you know, whoever your beneficiaries are, that they understand exactly what it is that you want to do with those assets, and that you trust them, and you trust them to do the right thing. This is, again, one of those touchy subjects that a lot of us don't like to broach, which is probably why 70% of African Americans do not have a will, because of the fact that of that subject. But again, you know, nothing is certain but death, death and taxes, as they say. So let's be mindful. You know, again, this is a session that we want to continue to pass information on and hopefully benefit not just us and those on the call, but, you know, our children and our children's children, so that they can go back and look at these videos that we've recorded and get something out of it. Again, like Vince said, we are not the experts in some of these categories, but we have done a little research. We have talked with those who are the experts, and we may have some on this call. So with that said, I'll open it up to questions, comments about this subject.
I think it's very important. I'm not an expert on this kind of thing, but it's very important that you have your living will and also do your will, because when I got sick, you know, I said, oh Lord, you know, we have to get all this stuff together. And so thank goodness that, you know, we do have things in order. So my kids will be, they don't have to be fighting over what's what. They know, but it's really important. Thank you. I thank you for this, you know, for what you're presenting today. It's very helpful.
Yeah, Aaron, I do want to say, you know, this past year has been very rough on many families, and we all seen a lot of people affected by COVID, and we all may know someone who has transitioned because of COVID. We don't know when it's going to happen, but we want our families to be at ease and not to be fighting over things. You know, I've even seen that, you know, even in our family, you know, just this year, you know, because of, you know, COVID related death. So we need to make sure we handle our business on earth. And like you said, Aaron, we need to keep it updated. A lot of people who you would think celebrity wise did not have wills, but a case of where someone did have a will, Kobe Bryant. Kobe Bryant had a will, but he just recently had a child, and he didn't have that new child on the will, you know, in the will. You know, so that child did not get the money. But what ended up happening is they went to court and they actually granted it. So there was good that came out of it, but we do have to keep it updated. So anytime there's, you know, any significant life-changing events, marriage or divorce or new kids, you know, you have to make sure it's updated and make sure the loved ones, you know, have copies of it, you know, and know where it's at. A trusted person, you know, should have a copy of it so they can access it. Should be in a safe or something. And it's okay to have a digital copy and mail that out, but also make sure you can go on LegalZoom and you know, other websites and do one yourself. But it is best to go through an attorney and make sure it's notarized properly, because it won't hold up in court if it's, you know, not notarized properly. And it's not a cookie cutter method. Everyone's needs are different, and everyone's circumstances are different. So I'm going to yield my time to if anyone has any other contributions.
Vince, when we talk about healthcare directive, when you go to your doctor, many times they have that as one of the checklists to see if in fact the patient has completed that. That's one of the items on the checklist. Now, why is that important? Is because the patient may not be in a physical condition to answer those questions that are asked of them in terms of what they would like to have for care. And so it is extremely important for us to remember that there should be some person that's helping that patient oversee their health care when they're in the hospital, when they're in the doctor's office, so that they are getting all the things that is asked of them. Because sometimes people may not want to be on life support systems or whatever. And so it's important for us to not forget or take lightly the healthcare directive. That's it.
I think that's very true. A lot of families, they want to keep their loved ones, around and say, it's in God's hand, God's control, but that person may not have, wanted to be in that condition. So, we have to make sure we take care of our needs and our responsibilities here on earth and make our wishes known. So if there's no other comments or questions, again, we are not experts, but we are here sharing knowledge, sharing information. If you have any information, please do not be afraid, to voice it. If you have any questions, do not be afraid to, speak up, because we are here just to, the sole purpose of this is to communicate as a family and learn from one another's experiences and the experiences of others.
I have a question. I was a little distracted. Just want to make sure I understood. So is medical power of attorney, is that what was being spoken on at the end about wanting to know if your family member knows if you want the plug pulled or not? Or is that healthcare derivative? Which one is that?
That is the healthcare directive, the advanced
Direct.
directive. Yes.
Okay. So that's something that you would write out like the same night or day that you plan on writing out your living will. You should just go ahead and knock both of those out.
That is your living will. The will is something different.
So that's what a living will is referring to. Healthcare directive.
Yes. So the medical power of attorney, and someone else, can speak on this. Anyone else that has a little bit of information on it can speak on what they know. But the medical power of attorney is if you're not unable, to write or speak for yourself, someone can do that on your behalf. But the healthcare directive or that living will is what's going to happen if you become, in a coma or vegetative state or on life support. And if anyone else can, share what they know on it, that would be helpful.
No, you are correct. The medical power of attorney will also give you power of attorney to help that person if they need to go in a rehab center, if they need care at home, if they need, and some authority or signatures are needed. That's what the medical power of attorney provides. It's a little more extensive than just the healthcare directive. Does that answer your question?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Sure does.
Once a person passes on, that power of attorney is no good, right?
That's correct.
That's
Right.
correct. And the same thing with the durable power of attorney. So the medical power of attorney is, all of those medical things, issues, but the durable power of attorney is for any financial things. If you have property, if you have, you need to talk to the banks, you need to talk to creditors, for someone else, if someone needs to speak on your behalf or sign on your behalf. So are there any further comments, questions in regards to estate planning? Again, there is a video with the attorney speaking on that, giving us a presentation on that and more in-depth information about it. We do have access to attorneys if you need one, to talk about that. But we're going to move forward. So we're going to move on from the death and the tough conversations. We don't want this whole thing to be about death. It's so much more to it when we're talking about economical empowerment. But one of the things we talked about, we had a very great session on the historical perspective and narrative of our country of the wealth disparities within the Black community. And I'm just give you some of the highlights from that. Then we're going to pass it on to Monique to talk a little bit further on that. But as of August 2019, our African-American households had an average net worth of $17,600. The average household for African-American families had a net wealth of $17,600. That's below the poverty line. So with that in mind, the transfer of wealth has been extremely impacted. Now, we looked at the historical evidence of the institutional and systematic discrimination that has happened. And one of the things we talked about was the Fair Housing Act of 1968. This is fairly recent. We got the right to vote, but then they put something else, stopping us, preventing us from having the equality and justice for all, as our Constitution says. But we looked at how it went from a sharecropper system and then the merchant accounts, then the predatory lending. But looking at our counterparts, as of August 2019, white households had an average net wealth of $171,000. $171,000, our white counterparts. In this 2019, 2 years ago. Okay. Now, this has been enabled through systematic segregation and continued to harden the discriminatory practices. But this disparity ties to our access. Our access, one of the greatest ways to build wealth is through home ownership. There's many disparities. We looked at that with redlining. We talked about a statistic of 40% of African Americans were homeowners in 1968, right when we got the right to vote. 40%. And if we look at today's statistics, it's the same, 40%. In all of these years, we haven't grown. So the disparities that are in place to have that access has prevented us in the home ownership. We can see that there's many external, but there's also internal. And that is the knowledge and information we just don't have to pass on. Sometimes we don't pass it on. Sometimes, they're not ready. People are not ready. People don't want to hear it. People are just tied up with life. But also credit, access to credit and managing credit. So we're going to talk a little bit about credit later, but some of the large contributors to the wealth disparity continues to be subprime lending and some of the algorithms that target the vulnerable people. So I want to pass it over to Monique, who gave an outstanding session on this and gave us that evidence and whatever she has to share about this. So, Monique, it's on you.
Thanks, Vincent. So, Vince, you did a great recap, and given we're shorter on time, I think the main takeaways is, that, understanding structural credit discrimination is important to see it from a historical perspective, because this has been going on for a long time. And it helps explain the racial disparities in terms of wealth and looking at the structural discrimination in the credit markets. And so, the statistics are very stark, and, a lot of the structural discrimination has basically, hurt African Americans' wealth accumulation in two significant ways, and that is access to traditional sources of credit, and the cost of achieving home ownership. I mean, when we even do get the opportunities to purchase homes, our access is limited as far as our, interest rate that we get compared to whites. And looking at some of the statistics in 2006, African-American families earning more than $2,000 a year were more likely to get a subprime loan than a white family making $30,000. So this is a systematic issue that's been going on for a long time. And I encourage you to look through the presentation materials. It talks a lot about it. And the main takeaway is that, as a family, we need to, in order to kind of narrow those gaps, is to achieve home ownership. And part of that is developing wealth, is access to credit. And so, a lot of scholars have demonstrated that the single most important means of accumulating wealth is home ownership. And so, just wanting to pass that knowledge down to our family. So with that, because of the time limitations, I just like to open it up for conversation or questions.
Does anybody have anything they want to contribute? Yeah.
I mean, it just seems like a pattern. I just feel like we should just be aware that there is, there's factors that are against us as a people and as a family. It's good for us to, just be paying attention to these patterns that are out there. It's not the boogeyman, it's real life.
Also, for credit repair, there are some free, credible, reliable organizations that are nonprofit that can help you and walk you through the process to repair that credit. And they have other resources where they can make recommendations to you on the best approach and how long it may take for you to repair that credit.
Real quick, one thing that I see as a potential reason with the disparities in home ownership amongst Black people is knowing what the benefits of home ownership is or are. There's a lot of course, tax reasons that will benefit you. And just, the longer you hold on to a home, the more equity and money that you gain. So that might be a potential for another topic for us, is to talk about benefits of home ownership so that we can pass that on to our family.
Also, in insurance ratings, when you are rated for auto insurance, one of the criteria is, do you own that home? And if in fact you do, you get a better rate. So consider that, not just for insurance, but credit cards and anything else.
And just to add also real quick, POTK, we're here to make things plain and to go ahead and uncover a lot of those mysteries that may be out there. So we are going to have more presentations that are detailing exactly some of the things that we're speaking on, as far as the exact steps to credit repair and the exact steps to buying a home, as well as the benefits of having ownership. So this is just a piece by piece process, family. We're just introducing people to these concepts, but just know we're going to dig deeper.
Thank you. I think they were all great points that you all brought up. I've been talking about, I don't know if any of you seen it, but on Amazon Prime, they have a new series called Them out. And it's like a, horror, but it talks so much about life. I mean, this black family moved into a white neighborhood, and they had so many external factors and problems in that neighborhood of, whites, coming in and terrorizing them. and white flight was taking place. But they had many internal issues and conflicts and demons that they had to resolve, and they really couldn't stop running from their external problems until they handled and faced their internal problems. And I think that's one of the things we need to do as a community and a family, and deal with the internal issue of building ourselves up so we can start to have wealth and pass on the wealth. And home ownership, is definitely one of those ways. And like Shed and others said, we're going to have more sessions, doing a deeper dive into these issues and of how to accumulate wealth and how to empower ourselves and be financially independent. So just moving forward, for sake of time, we did have a session on elections and planning a vote and just a little bit of civic engagement. We didn't want to limit it to telling you how to vote, but the importance of voting and just that civic engagement and civic education. It was a very powerful session. Many of you on this call were there. Wanted you to know that elections do have consequences. So voting is a positive consequence to voting. However, we saw, I live in Atlanta, Georgia, and we saw it came down to Georgia here for our presidential election. And we turned out in numbers, our community really turned out, and we flipped Georgia from red to blue on a federal level, not on a state level, but on a federal level. And that was historic. It was a great win for us as a people. But from that, we saw that they moved the goalposts again, and they put in laws to limit our voting access. But now, I think nearly close to 40 other states have similar kinds of voting restrictions going on and laws being passed going on. So I'm not going to talk long on this, but again, we want to make sure you own your vote, know your vote, plan your vote, know who to vote for, who's in charge of what on a both local and federal level. So city, county, state, federal level, who's in charge of what, because everything does not lie on the president. So Shed, I'm going to open it up to you for any contributions for this.
All right. Well, yes, just like Vince was saying, as a family, we do want to be more engaged in what's going on in our communities at the civic level, especially. We want to be leaders in our community. And so just to give people kind of a brief recap of what Vince was speaking on in this past election, specifically here in Georgia, it did have an effect because we did turn out in numbers, and because we made a change, and the opposing party, they went out of their way to pass the legislation so that they can kind of curb what happened. And so what we're speaking on, a lot of people were calling it voter suppression, but we're speaking on the voters' rights bill that was passed. And just like Vince said, it was there was that similar legislation is also on the table in 40 other states. So there's an 80% chance that it's happening in your state as well. So we want to keep our eyes open, family, on what's going on. So I took notes on some of the items in the bill that were important that they changed, because this is setting a precedent, and they're going to try to use that as a guideline with the other states and other municipalities. So just be on the lookout. Like, for instance, in Georgia, the earliest that you can request a mail-in ballot is now 11 weeks before the election. It was once 180 days. So they cut that more than in half, as well as the deadline to actually request a mail-in ballot. It used to be that you could request it the Friday right before the election, and they changed that to 2 weeks before the election. There's a different number of things that they changed, but some of the important parts, one of the main things is when you are requesting a mail-in ballot, you now have to show identification, whether it's a state ID, your voter ID, or your driver license. So just be aware of that, because that's something that's probably going to be universal, once a lot of this other legislation gets passed. But just to give you a peek into some of the strategic ways that, they're trying to attack our community specifically, because at one point we could go and put in absentee ballots at the drop boxes. I don't know if you all are familiar with the drop box system that they used the last election, but we have midterms coming up again next year. So we need to be aware that where your drop box is, if you're planning on sending in an absentee ballot, because they were spread out all over the state. Here in Georgia, before we had 94 boxes, they limited down to 24 boxes. And so they cut that down to a quarter of what it was. But the real thing that the monkey wrench that they're throwing in there is they're trying to monitor the boxes. So they want you to actually go to the early voting sites. They're not at any random on government properties and places where you can just access them 24 hours out of the day. So again, they got the moves in that they're making where they're putting us in a box. And a lot of this is geared towards people that people of color, people that have limited resources. So I'm not going to belabor the point, because there's all kind of other different political agendas mixed up in there. But just know that we're not going for that voter suppression. Anytime they're trying to take our rights away and our voting right, that's the basis of our democratic rights. So, whether or not we're paying attention to everything that's going on, we need our vote. So we have to protect that at all means. So I just wanted to give us an update of what's going on as a family, and we'll open it up for any questions.
I do want to say, although some way for us to vote, procrastination is an enemy of ours. Day one, go vote. Day one, they open the ballot box, go vote. Do not procrastinate.
You're exactly right, Marquis. That's the main reason why
I agree.
All of these are time limit based, because
That's right.
That's where the racism comes in at. They're looking at us to stay on CP time and miss all of these deadlines.
Right.
So pay attention. They move the goalposts.
First day.
Yeah, I appreciate that contribution. Adrian, you were going to say something?
Yeah, one of the things we did solicit from every family is, if one person is going to vote, take everybody in the house with you. Load up the car, go down the street, get your neighbors, relatives, friends, and make it an event if you need to. But do whatever we can to get as many people connected to us in our circles to those polls. And that's what helped us. We went around just collecting people, to go to those polls and encouraging them and explaining on the way why it is so important. Some people, this was the first time they ever voted, ever. So hopefully we can keep that trend up, but each one of us must take that responsibility and be accountable for helping others get there. Thank you.
I agree.
Yeah, I just wanted to add, I think it's, very important to, open up the lines of communication between families and family members, because, we don't necessarily want to tell people who to vote for. I don't have a problem with Democrats. I don't have a problem with independents. I don't have a problem with Republicans at all. But we need to be educated, about the process, how things affect us as a family, and how it's going to affect, us currently and generations after us. So we just need to be mindful and just, start learning from each other, and, don't focus so much just on the federal. The local elections are very important as well, for the school boards, for the city councils, and board of commissioners, and, all of that, whatever you have in your local district and municipalities. So, all of that is very important. So if we had no more comments or questions in regards to that, we're going to go to our last and final recap or recapitulation of the video or session that we had. And we had a wonderful session on credit. It was given by one of our own, Carrie Winborn, did an outstanding job about credit. And just to quickly, briefly summarize that. And again, for those that came on late, the videos are on a website that we have designed, and I'll give you all access to that website. I'll post it in the chat and put it on the Facebook group so you have access to that. But in terms of credit and what we just briefly talked about, we talked about, the credit scores, range from about 300 to 850. Excellent credit scores, 720 and above. But it's important to note there's 3 different credit bureaus: Experian, Equifax, and TransUnion. But there's, certain things to remember that contribute to a good credit score, and that's good payment history. And all of the different 3 bureaus have a different formula and a percentage of what they value these different things, these 4 things I'm about to talk about. Good payment history, accounts open for long periods of time, a low balance to credit limit ratio, and then multiple types of accounts, whether it be revolving or installments, so like credit cards, car loans, mortgages, all of those loans. If you have multiple types, that goes to the ratio of what they contribute to coming up with your score. A couple questions that we kind of talked about is how do you help your child begin to understand about credit? And we talked about a few things of showing them bills, and we gave a couple of examples explaining to them different items you purchase and showing them how to make payments on those different things, and starting to discuss credit in the early years is most beneficial. So as soon as they begin to understand the concept of money, and this is something that we have to talk about in our communities and in our households. I am a former educator. I taught business education, in high school. And, I talked about all of this. I gave this information, but most times when I tell people, I'm a high school teacher, I teach business. And oh, wow, you teach business in high school? We didn't learn that. It is in many school districts, many high schools around the country now, but we cannot rely on that. We have to start this education in the concept of money, at an early age and within our families. There's a great book called Rich Dad, Poor Dad. Robert Kiyosaki talks about, all of this, the things that the poor dad teaches their children, their offsprings, about consumerism, where the rich dad teaches them, the understanding the concept of money. But we also talked about another question. Will just checking the credit score hurt your actual credit? And the answer to that is no. You can get free credit report from all 3 bureaus once a year, and it doesn't count, as an inquiry, and won't impact your score. Many financial institutions also will provide that credit score each month, through their online banking or smartphone, apps, free of charge. Some of them just give you your score, but you do want to look at the report. So I want to pass it on to this credit portion briefly over to Carrie, our cousin Carrie, who gave this presentation.
Right, thanks, Vince. Yeah, you hit on the major points there. A couple of things that I'll just reiterate. First of all, it's very important to understand where your credit score is. And he mentioned those that you can get the free credit report, and you can view your entire report, not just your score, but you get a free entire credit report once a year from all 3 bureaus. So make sure you check all 3 of them, because you could have an account that's on in good standing on one credit bureau, but on another one, it might have a late payment showing. So you have to kind of reconcile and make sure that all the information on all three of those are accurate. Another thing real quick is about passing on the information to the next generation. So if you have kids, make sure they understand the concept of credit, because credit can help you or it can hurt you significantly if you don't know how to use it. If you're not paying attention to what your interest rates are on your credit cards, it's going to be almost impossible to ever catch up if you're paying a 30% interest rate on some of the credit that you're using. And then also how you're making your payments. You can always want to make at least the minimum payment, but to increase your credit score, you always want to pay a little bit more than that. So there's certain things that you can do to help your credit score. And again, as you pass that information on and teach your kids, as soon as they have their first job, and try to help them to get a little credit card or put them as a co-signer on your card. So again, you can monitor what they're doing and make sure that they're using it correctly. But it's just again, this is about passing on the knowledge. And we talked about home ownership, and we talked about, life insurance. We talked about, getting a will. All these things, your credit score can impact every other aspect of your life. So if you don't keep a good credit score or decent credit, you're going to end up paying more for other things, along the way. So pay attention to what your score is. Check your all three credit bureaus at least once a year. And, as a basic credit fundamental, try to pay a little bit more than a minimum payment each month on your cards. Anybody else have anything to add or any other specific questions on credit?
Yes, there's a little trick with your credit card. Some people pay more than what the minimum is. But if you pay twice, it kind of helps your credit score also. If you pay twice within that month, it kind of, I don't know what it does to your credit score, but it helps you with the way they look at your credit score. So don't just pay that one payment a couple weeks before it's due. Pay one payment and then make another payment just before it's due, and it does something to tweak your score or whatever. I don't know what I can't remember what it was, but that's what I was told. And so I did a little research on it. It is true, and it does help, and it helps you pay off your credit card faster.
Yeah. The reason it helps is because it lowers your principal balance on what you're paying. In your minimum monthly payment, a lot of it is part of the interest, that you're charged for that month. So when you make that minimum payment, you're covering that interest charge. You make that second payment, it's going straight to the principal of whatever credit you have. So it's going to lower your balance faster, which in turn, as you mentioned, Markeith, will increase your credit score.
And I thank you for that little tidbit. I think everyone here should, be, if you have any questions, don't be afraid to ask. We have within our family here, we have the subject matter expert here. If you don't know, Carrie's the man over at Bank of America. So, ask him all the questions.
And that's one thing I hate that I didn't learn earlier. Like, you getting that education now, because a long time I had a credit score down in, I know one time it was down in the 5.
Yep.
And it took me a long time to realize the power of that, and having power and getting that interest rate with that good credit score.
Yep.
So you go in there paying, interest rate of 10 and 12%, and some people walk in there with 0% if you got good credit, because they're not scared to give you no money.
Yep, that's exactly right. I was in the same boat as a teenager.
That almost sounds good for Black people in my hood. When you don't know, you don't know. That's what this is all about. We spreading the information.
And another thing is, I use Credit Karma. It checks your TransUnion, your Equifax. You don't have to wait. Like, I keep an eye on it just in case anything pops up. It lets me know if somebody jumped in on me or something like that. But Credit Karma, I get it with my Chase account, but you can monitor your credit and keep an eye on it in case something happens. You can catch it early. So it's a good thing to have. They got a couple of different ones out there to monitor your credit without just checking it once a year. 'cause a lot can happen in a year.
Absolutely right.
All right, if there's no other questions or comments or tips any family members want to share, we're going to just wrap it up. If there's any questions on anything, that we talked about or discuss, we're coming down to the hour mark. We like to keep these conversations, to an hour, limited to an hour. So we're coming up on that time limit, but it's important to make sure we get any contributions or any questions, answered at this time. So, feel free, to ask any questions that you may have.
If it's possible to squeeze, if we could squeeze Willie in, and I get Willie to give us an update. I think he sent out an email or something to reference to the college fund. And if he could squeeze, we could squeeze him in for the last couple minutes about.
Oh, the scholarship, absolutely, absolutely. I did see that post, so yeah, we'll get that. We'll get to that. We do have a question, Cheryl.
Yes, I'd like to know, is there a list of the family members that have businesses like in the life insurance industry or the trust and will that we can get? I mean, like a directory or something like that?
Yes, well, we do have a directory. We're working on updating that. We are also at this time working on updating a website. I put a link to our previous videos, but
Okay.
that link just currently has our previous videos. But we do have a section that is, hidden to the public that we are working on that. So I'm glad that you mentioned that. So we are definitely working on that. Those family members that do have businesses or subject matter experts at these different things, we need to know that. We need to support our own, but if we all have, connections as well to others outside of the family, but it's good to support, each other within. So I thank you for bringing that. That will be coming soon.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Any other questions or concerns? And everyone, please take a look at the chat. You can find the website link. You can just click on it on your phone, on your computer, on your tablet, whatever device you're on. It'll take you to that. We are in the process of getting our own domain, and it will have information about the scholarship, which we're about to talk about. And it's going to have information about the family reunion coming up and everything. We're going to keep this website updated. But we wanted to give you at least these videos that we were working on. They're rough videos. They're not professionally edited yet. We'll get there. But we just, want to give you something. So any other questions, concerns, comments, discussion points before we wrap it up?
Hey, Vince, can we ask also if there are other topics that people would like us to present at some point in the future? They can reach out to us, or if there's anything off the top of your heads that you have right now. We are looking for additional topics to jump into. So if you have some suggestions, please let us know.
Yeah, to that, if okay, Pat, go ahead.
Yes, I was just thinking about maybe health issues and that kind of thing, that run through kinds of diseases and what have to run through our families and what to look for. I think that's important.
Absolutely, I agree. Yeah, we definitely talked about that, and we don't want to limit it to wealth and finance and money. We want to expand. So, we talked about care. There was a suggestion about caregiving. That's another good suggestion about health. And there's many different topics that we can go into about health. And we have some subject matter experts right within our family that we can reach out to help us facilitate that discussion. Next month, we are going to have a session on, retirement and investment. Excuse me, we're going to have a wealth manager, expert come in and talk about that. It's never too early to start to plan and That's for May, and then June we're going to have another one that's going to it's going to be more geared more towards the youth, and we're going to entitle it "Who Wants to Be a Millionaire?" And so we want all of the family members here to, if you have younger children in your family, teenagers, family members, in their 20s, let them know about this. Send them the invite, send them the information, because we're all sharing it. We all just, contributing to that. We want to build our next generation. So any other suggestions of topics, or questions or concerns or comments?
Us older people, we could be millionaires too, right? We still in on this?
That's the great thing about America. It's never too late.
Absolutely. And there's a scientific process to get there, guaranteed.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So let's jump on that bandwagon.
Yeah, we got the secrets now.
Anything else? Anything else? Anybody want to give any comments?
Comment. I have been present at all of the sessions and all were well done. And you did a great job in the recap. And I thank you for all that you've done, everyone on the committee. Job well done. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you for being a loyal participant. Okay, so we're just going to wrap it up, and we're going to end out with a word of prayer. I'm going to ask Aaron to give us a closing word of prayer and pray for all of our family members. I definitely want to thank everyone for joining. Again, we want to try to have these, once a month, if not once a quarter. So look out for the announcement. Make sure you pass this information on to others. And don't be afraid to contribute. Before we close again, Marquise, I'm glad you popped back up. Is William McPherson on the line to give us a quick update of what you put on the Facebook group and about the scholarship?
Yeah, the scholarship. I was going to let Adrian speak first, because my job, I'm kind of just watching the money. And Adrian is sort of heading up the the scholarship committee. So if she would go ahead and speak, then I'll tell you where we are.
Sounds good.
Thank you for that transition. That was unexpected. But yes, we continue to have meetings regarding the scholarship program. It is up and running. Because of COVID, we have made a few modifications in the criteria, and our overall goal is to award as many students as possible to the scholarship funds. Because remember, education today, the cost of education is increasing significantly. And our awards traditionally has been $500. It may not sound like much, but it helps. It helps with supplies, books, them transportation, getting to school, and a number of items. So we don't take it lightly. The applications are going to be modified some so that we make it easy for the recipients to be awarded the $500. And those, we've changed the deadline date because of COVID. The deadline date is now this year, June 30. So we are encouraging every chapter, scout out and find some students that we can get them completed through the application process and do our best to award as many people as possible. So William McPherson has put online what the financial responsibility is to date for each chapter. And Hugh Williams, the national president, is going to be contacting all of the chapter presidents to reinforce. Please send in your financial responsibility for each chapter. We are needing that also by the 30th. So that will help us a lot. Let's see. Oh, and again, we're trying to recruit as many students as possible. And it doesn't matter if they're graduating from high school, college, going to another level, if they're going to vocational school, if they're going to some kind of special program. We want to recognize them and award them with something. So now I'll turn the rest over to McPherson.
Okay, as it stands, that's I'm the one kind of watching the money, see what we got. So right now, as of we have $1,202. North Carolina came through a couple of days ago and submitted $200. All the chapters are basically behind by 2 years. I think Virginia chapter did donate in 2020 of $200, and Adrian donated in 2020 with $50. So basically we're about $400 behind with each one of the chapters, except for the ones that I mentioned. So you can figure it out from that. But we did say that we would give $200 a year. Each chapter would give $200 a year toward the scholarship, or anybody could give basically, on the individual basis if they so desire. But we do want to make sure that the chapters, you go through your chapter to make sure that they can meet their obligations. And I put on there how you can submit any donations that you would like to give. We have an email address. I have a Cash App, or you can send a check. But regardless of how you send the money, just make sure that you annotate that it is for the Williams Locke Scholarship Fund. That's all I have just today.
All right, thank you for that update and that information. We definitely appreciate our scholarship committee and all the hard work. College is very expensive. I graduated nearly 15 years ago and still figuring out how I'm going to pay it or looking at the bills every month. And we've had this scholarship, going for a number of years. I remember 20 years ago when I was going to college, I believe I received one as well. So I thank the scholarship committee and this family for it. So any family members that that are in need of that and going to the next level, please submit their names, give them that information, and do be in touch with the scholarship committee. Thank you, William McPherson and Adrian Williams. You say it was unexpected, but you were ready. And they always say, stay ready so you don't have to get ready. And you were definitely ready and prepared for that. So thank you for that. So we're going to wrap this up and close. If there's no final remarks, we're going to go to Aaron for our closing prayer.
All right, let's bow. Lord, thank you for what our eyes have seen and our ears have heard today. Thank you for such a powerful family. Thank you for a family that's willing to share. Thank you for a loving family. Lord, we ask that as we go away today and separate, that you'll continue to keep us close in our hearts. Lord, we ask that you'll protect and keep every family represented on this call and every family represented in the Williams Locke chapters. And Lord, we just give you all the glory, all the honor, and all the praise. In your name, Jesus, amen.
Amen. Amen. All right. Thank you, family. The session
Good to see everybody.
Good to see you.
Thanks for the information. That was great.
Thank you.
Okay. Be blessed, everyone. Be blessed.
Bless. Thank you so much.
Everyone as well.
Good to see y'all.
Bye all.